Detective Sarah Hayes of the Special Paranormal Investigation Unit, SBIU, stood outside the lavish townhouse in the heart of Millbrook. It was a chilly autumn evening, and a light mist hung in the air, adding an eerie atmosphere to the already unsettling scene. Behind her, the rest of her team, forensic expert Dr. Mark Bennett, occult specialist Dr. Maya Singh, and tech analyst Eric Reynolds, prepared to enter the crime scene. They were here because of the portrait, a haunting depiction of a woman with ethereal eyes and a melancholic smile. The latest victim, John Winston, a wealthy art collector, had been found dead in his study, his eyes fixed on the painting. It wasn't the first time such a death had occurred. Each victim had owned a portrait by Victor Hartley, an artist known for his mysterious and macabre artworks. As Sarah entered the townhouse, the smell of antique wood and old books greeted her. The study was dimly lit, the portrait casting a subtle glow in the corner. Mark bent over Winston's body, meticulously examining the scene while Maya stood nearby, her keen eyes scanning the room for any supernatural traces. Maya spoke first, her voice low and tinged with concern. "There's something unsettling about this painting, Sarah. I can feel a presence, a sort of lingering energy." Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the portrait. "It's not just a painting. It's as if it has a life of its own." She turned to Eric, who was setting up his equipment to scan the room for anomalies. "Eric, any unusual readings?" Eric glanced at his monitor, brow furrowed in concentration. "Yeah, the electromagnetic field around the painting is fluctuating. It's like there's something trying to communicate with us." Mark interrupted, holding up Winston's autopsy report. "Sarah, the cause of death is inconclusive. There are no apparent signs of foul play or natural causes. It's as if he just stopped living." Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. Victor Hartley's paintings have always been controversial. Rumors suggest he used occult practices to imbue his art with the souls of his subjects. Maya's expression darkened. If that's true, these portraits could be cursed, a conduit for trapped spirits seeking retribution. Eric spoke up, his voice tense. "I've reviewed surveillance footage. Every victim had a moment before their death where they seemed transfixed by the portrait, almost as if they were under some kind of trance." Sarah's jaw tightened. "We need to find out more about Victor Hartley and his methods. Maya, can you delve into his background? Mark, scour the crime scenes for any clues we might have missed. Eric, keep monitoring the painting." As they dispersed to their tasks, Sarah's thoughts turned to the estate where Hartley had lived and worked, a secluded mansion rumored to hold the key to his mysterious artistry. It was time to uncover the truth behind the possessed portraits and stop the cycle of death before more lives were claimed. Hours later, in the quiet solitude of her office, Sarah pored over files and old newspaper clippings detailing Victor Hartley's rise to fame and subsequent descent into obscurity. Maya entered, a stack of dusty journals in her arms. "I found these in the city archives," Maya said, setting the journals on Sarah's desk. "They belong to Victor Hartley. His writings are disturbing." Sarah flipped through the pages, her heart sinking at the dark and twisted accounts of Hartley's experiments with occult rituals to capture the essence of his subjects. He believed he could achieve immortality through his art, that these paintings held the souls of the people he painted. Maya nodded grimly. "The portraits are more than just art. They're prisons for the souls trapped within them." Sarah's resolve hardened. "We need to visit Hartley's estate. There's something there that can help us understand what we're dealing with." The team regrouped, their minds focused on the journey ahead. As they prepared to leave for the estate, Sarah glanced once more at the portrait in Winston's study. Its eyes seemed to follow her, a silent accusation of the horrors it had witnessed. Outside, the mist had thickened, enveloping Millbrook in a shroud of uncertainty. The journey to Hartley's estate would take them deeper into the heart of darkness, a place where artistry and malevolence merged, and where the secrets of the possessed portraits waited to be unearthed. The journey to Victor Hartley's secluded estate was fraught with tension and anticipation. Sarah Hayes navigated the winding roads leading to the mansion, the autumn foliage casting dappled shadows across their path. The estate loomed ahead, its imposing gates creaking open as they approached. The mansion stood as a relic of a bygone era, its grandeur tinged with an unsettling stillness. Sarah and her team, Mark, Maya, and Eric, entered cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the empty foyer. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight filtering through stained glass windows, adding to the eerie ambience. Eric, adjusting his equipment, scanned the surroundings for any paranormal activity. "The energy here is intense," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's like the air is charged with something." Maya nodded, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in energy. "We're definitely in the presence of something supernatural. Hartley's experiments must have left a mark on this place." Mark, ever the pragmatist, focused on the physical evidence. He examined the intricate carvings on the walls, each telling a story of the mansion's opulent past and the darker secrets it harbored. Hartley's obsession with immortality led him down a dangerous path, he remarked, his tone reflective. If he truly believed he could capture souls in his paintings, then this estate holds the key to understanding how. Sarah's gaze swept over the grand staircase leading to the upper floors. "Let's split up. Maya, see if you can find Hartley's study. Mark, search the library for any books or journals that might shed light on his methods. Eric, continue monitoring the estate for any supernatural activity." As they dispersed, Sarah made her way through the mansion, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of floorboards and the distant hum of Eric's equipment. She reached a set of double doors and pushed them open, revealing Hartley's study, a room frozen in time. The study was a testament to Hartley's eccentricities, filled with taxidermy animals, ancient artifacts, and shelves lined with obscure books on occult practices. Maya joined her, a weathered journal in her hands. "I found this hidden behind a false panel," she said, her voice tinged with excitement and unease. "It's Hartley's personal journal." Sarah took the journal, flipping through its yellowed pages. Hartley's handwriting was meticulous, his entries detailing his descent into madness as he experimented with rituals to bind souls to his paintings. He believed he could achieve immortality through his art, she murmured, her voice tinged with disbelief. Maya pointed to a particular passage. "He mentions a ritual he performed to capture the essence of his wife, Evelyn, the same woman in the portrait that seems to be at the center of all this." Sarah's mind raced with the implications. If Evelyn's soul is trapped in that portrait, then freeing her might be the key to breaking the curse. Meanwhile, Mark uncovered a hidden compartment in the library, revealing a collection of ancient tomes and scrolls. He meticulously examined each one, searching for clues that could help unravel the mystery of the possessed portraits. Eric, monitoring the estate's surveillance cameras, noticed flickering lights and unexplained shadows moving through the halls. His equipment detected anomalies, cold spots, electromagnetic disturbances, all signs of lingering paranormal activity. As evening fell over Hartley's estate, Sarah gathered her team in the study, the journal and artifacts spread out before them. "Hartley's experiments were more than just mad science," she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of their discoveries. "They were attempts to harness supernatural forces beyond our understanding." Maya nodded in agreement. "Evelyn's spirit is trapped in that portrait, tormented by her husband's obsession with immortality. If we can find a way to communicate with her, we might be able to free her." Mark, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "Communicating with spirits? Are we sure we're not crossing a line here?" Sarah glanced at the portrait, its eyes seeming to follow their every move. "We've come this far, Mark. We owe it to the victims and to Evelyn to put an end to this curse. Tomorrow, we perform the ritual described in Hartley's journal. We confront the darkness head-on." As they prepared for the ritual, the mansion grew quiet around them, the ancient walls seeming to hold their breath in anticipation. Outside, the mist thickened once more, cloaking Hartley's estate in a veil of mystery and foreboding. The stage was set for their encounter with the supernatural forces bound to the possessed portrait, a confrontation that would test their resolve and challenge their understanding of the paranormal. The following morning dawned with an air of anticipation and unease at Victor Hartley's secluded estate. Sarah Hayes and her team, Mark, Maya, and Eric, gathered in the study, surrounded by the artifacts and journals they had unearthed. The portrait of Evelyn Hartley loomed over them, its presence both haunting and mesmerizing. Maya stood before the portrait, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared for the ritual. She had spent the night studying Hartley's journal, deciphering the arcane symbols and incantations necessary to communicate with Evelyn's trapped spirit. Sarah, her expression resolute, addressed the team. "We have one chance to free Evelyn's spirit from this curse. Maya, are you ready?" Maya nodded, her voice steady despite the nerves. "I'm ready. The ritual requires focus and determination. We need to create a channel for Evelyn to communicate with us." Eric adjusted his equipment, calibrating it to monitor any paranormal activity. "I'm picking up fluctuations in the electromagnetic field around the portrait," he reported. "Whatever happens, we need to stay vigilant." Mark, ever the skeptic but willing to trust in his colleague's expertise, observed quietly from the sidelines. He knew the stakes were high, the lives lost, the souls trapped, and he was determined to see this through to the end. Maya began chanting ancient incantations, her voice echoing through the study. The air seemed to shimmer with energy, a faint blue glow emanating from the portrait. Sarah watched intently, her heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and determination. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, a cold breeze swirling around them. The portrait of Evelyn flickered, her eyes seeming to come alive with a spectral light. Maya continued chanting, her voice growing stronger as she established a connection with Evelyn's trapped spirit. "Evelyn Hartley," Maya called out, her voice echoing in the stillness. "We seek to free you from this torment. Show us a sign that you can hear us." The mansion seemed to hold its breath as they waited. Sarah glanced at Eric, who nodded, indicating heightened paranormal activity on his equipment. Mark furrowed his brow, silently acknowledging that something beyond their understanding was unfolding before them. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the room, a soft whisper carried on the wind. "Help me!" Sarah's heart clenched with empathy. "Evelyn, we're here to help you. Tell us how to break the curse." Maya, her eyes closed in concentration, continued to channel Evelyn's spirit. "Victor, my husband." Evelyn's voice was tinged with sadness and anger. "He bound me to the portrait, seeking eternal life through my suffering." Sarah's resolve hardened. "We need to disrupt the ritual that binds Evelyn's spirit to the portrait. Maya, can you guide us through it?" Maya nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to break the connection Victor created. There's a spell in Hartley's journal that might do it, but we must perform it exactly as described." Together, they gathered the necessary components for the ritual, a mixture of herbs, candles, and sacred symbols. Maya instructed each step, her voice steady despite the weight of their task. As they worked, the mansion seemed to come alive with unseen forces. Shadows flickered on the walls, and the air crackled with energy. Eric's equipment went haywire, lights flashing and alarms blaring as the supernatural energy surged around them. Mark watched the proceedings with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Are we sure about this?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. Sarah met his gaze, her own conviction unwavering. "We have to trust Maya's expertise. This is our only chance to free Evelyn and put an end to the curse." With the ritual nearing its climax, Maya spoke the final incantation, her voice echoing with power. The mansion trembled, as if protesting the intrusion of their mortal world into its ancient mysteries. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted from the portrait of Evelyn, illuminating the room with a dazzling brilliance. The air seemed to shimmer, and for a moment time stood still. And then, as quickly as it had begun, the light faded, leaving behind a sense of peace and quiet. The portrait of Evelyn Hartley remained, but the malevolent presence that had haunted it was gone. Sarah and her team stood in stunned silence, their breath visible in the cool air. They had succeeded. The curse of the possessed portrait had been broken. As they left Hartley's estate, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the mansion and its gardens. Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders, a sense of closure washing over her. "We did it," Maya murmured, her voice filled with relief and awe. "Evelyn is finally at peace." Eric nodded, his expression solemn. "I've never seen anything like it. The power in that room." Mark adjusted his glasses, a small smile tugging at his lips. "I may not fully understand what just happened, but I know we made a difference today." Sarah glanced back at the mansion, a silent vow passing between them. Their work was far from over, but for now, they could take solace in knowing they had saved lives and freed a tormented soul from its eternal prison. The possessed portrait was no longer a harbinger of death and despair. It was a testament to their courage, teamwork, and unwavering determination in the face of the unknown. Several days after their success in breaking the curse at Hartley's estate, Detective Sarah Hayes and her team found themselves back in Millbrook, reflecting on their recent ordeal. The possessed portrait case had left its mark on each of them, proof that the supernatural was not just folklore, but a tangible force that could wreak havoc if left unchecked. Sarah sat in her office at the SBIU headquarters, reviewing the evidence they had collected. Maya and Eric joined her, their faces drawn with fatigue, but also a sense of accomplishment. Mark, ever the skeptic but now more open-minded after their experiences, entered with a stack of files. "I've been digging deeper into Victor Hartley's past," Mark began, placing the files on Sarah's desk. "It seems he was involved in more than just art. There are mentions of occult gatherings and experiments with spiritualism." Maya leaned forward, her interest piqued. That would explain the potency of the curse. Hartley wasn't just painting portraits. He was binding souls to them through dark rituals. Sarah nodded, absorbing the information. "We need to understand more about these rituals. If Hartley had accomplices or followers, they could still be out there, continuing his work." Eric interjected, his voice serious. "I've been monitoring paranormal activity in Millbrook since our return. There's been a surge in reports, people claiming to have seen ghostly figures and experiencing unexplained phenomena." Sarah frowned, her mind racing with possibilities. If Hartley's legacy is still active, we need to find out who's involved and put a stop to it before more lives are affected. Mark tapped his fingers thoughtfully on the desk. "We should revisit the previous crime scenes. See if there's anything we missed. There might be clues that connect the victims to Hartley's network." Sarah agreed, feeling a renewed sense of urgency. "Let's split up. Maya, accompany me to Winston's townhouse. Mark, Eric, revisit the other victims' residences. Look for any signs of paranormal activity or connections to Hartley." As they dispersed to their assigned tasks, the city of Millbrook buzzed with the energy of autumn, a stark contrast to the darkness they were investigating. Maya and Sarah arrived at Winston's townhouse, the scene eerily reminiscent of their initial discovery. Inside, Maya sensed residual energy lingering in the study. She closed her eyes, focusing on the spiritual echoes left behind by the possessed portrait. "Sarah, there's something here," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "It's faint, but I can feel the presence of trapped souls." Sarah nodded, her instincts guiding her as they combed through the study once more. They found a hidden compartment behind the portrait, a cache of letters and artifacts linking Winston to an underground network of occult enthusiasts. Meanwhile, Mark and Eric revisited the other crime scenes, their investigation leading them to similar discoveries. Each victim had ties to Hartley's art collection and had been involved in secretive gatherings centered around supernatural practices. "We're dealing with a cult," Mark concluded grimly, sharing his findings with Sarah and Maya later that evening. Hartley's followers are continuing his work, using his paintings as conduits for dark rituals. Sarah's jaw tightened with determination. "We need to dismantle this cult before they can do any more harm." Eric, continue monitoring paranormal activity in Millbrook. Maya, research any known members of the cult. Mark, coordinate with local law enforcement to apprehend them. As they formulated their plan, a storm rolled in, casting the city in darkness. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a fitting backdrop to their battle against the forces of darkness. Days turned into nights as they pursued leads and gathered evidence, piecing together the cult's operations and identifying key members. Each revelation brought them closer to unraveling Hartley's dark legacy and putting an end to the possessed portraits once and for all. In the quiet moments between investigations, Sarah reflected on the journey they had undertaken. They had faced their fears and confronted the supernatural head-on, emerging stronger and more unified as a team. "We're closing in," Maya said one evening, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "We've identified the cult's headquarters. It's an old warehouse on the outskirts of town." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with plans for the final confrontation. "Tomorrow, we put an end to this. We stop Hartley's followers and break the cycle of death and despair they've perpetuated." As they prepared for their final assault on the cult's headquarters, Sarah felt a sense of purpose wash over her. They had come a long way since their first encounter with the possessed portrait, and now they were on the verge of bringing justice to those who had been ensnared in its malevolent grip. The storm outside intensified, rain lashing against the windows of SBIU headquarters. But inside, Sarah and her team were focused and determined, ready to face whatever darkness awaited them in the warehouse where Hartley's followers practiced their forbidden rituals. The night was cold and unforgiving as Detective Sarah Hayes and her team of the Special Paranormal Investigation Unit, SBIU, stood outside the old warehouse on the outskirts of Millbrook. Rain poured from the sky in sheets, thunder rumbling ominously in the distance. Inside the warehouse, the cultists of Victor Hartley's dark legacy performed their rituals, unaware of the impending confrontation. Sarah, flanked by Mark, Maya, and Eric, surveyed the scene through binoculars. The warehouse was dimly lit, shadows flickering on the walls as figures moved in a rhythmic dance around a central altar. Candles cast eerie shadows, illuminating symbols drawn in blood and arcane writings. "We need to move in quietly," Sarah murmured, her voice barely audible over the rain. "No one gets in or out until we've secured the area." Mark nodded, his eyes scanning the perimeter for any signs of movement. "We have the element of surprise on our side. Let's use it to our advantage." Maya adjusted her occult tools, preparing to counteract any supernatural defenses the cultists might have in place. "These rituals are powerful," she warned, her voice tinged with urgency. "We need to be prepared for anything." Eric, monitoring their communications, relayed updates from his surveillance equipment. "I'm detecting heightened paranormal activity inside the warehouse. Whatever they're doing in there, it's amplifying the energy." Sarah tightened her grip on her weapon, steeling herself for the confrontation ahead. "Let's go," she commanded, leading her team towards the warehouse entrance. They moved swiftly and silently, taking cover behind crates and machinery as they approached the cultists' makeshift altar. The air crackled with tension, each step bringing them closer to the heart of Hartley's dark legacy. Inside the warehouse, the cultists chanted in unison, their voices rising and falling with the cadence of their ritual. Sarah signaled to her team, and they moved in, weapons drawn and ready. The cultists, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, turned towards them with expressions of shock and defiance. "You have no right to interfere," one of them shouted, raising a dagger adorned with occult symbols. Sarah held up her badge, her voice unwavering. "This ends now. Surrender peacefully, and you will be treated fairly." The cultists hesitated, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. But one of them, bolder than the rest, lunged forward, chanting ancient incantations as he brandished the dagger. Maya reacted quickly, countering his spell with one of her own, disrupting the cultists' concentration. A fierce battle ensued, with Sarah and her team facing off against the cultists in a flurry of blows and counterattacks. Eric used his tech expertise to disable the mystical defenses, while Mark provided cover fire, ensuring they kept the upper hand. Through the chaos, Sarah caught glimpses of the portrait of Evelyn Hartley, placed at the center of the altar. Its eyes seemed to follow the unfolding confrontation, a silent witness to the madness it had wrought. As the fight reached its climax, Sarah confronted the cult's leader, a man consumed by fanaticism and the promise of immortality. "Victor Hartley's legacy ends here," she declared, her voice cutting through the chaos. The cult leader sneered, his voice laced with arrogance. "You can't stop us. Hartley's power is beyond your comprehension." Sarah fired a warning shot, the sound echoing in the warehouse. "Your delusions end now. Surrender or face the consequences." Cornered and outnumbered, the cult leader finally relented, dropping his weapon and raising his hands in defeat. The remaining cultists followed suit, their defiance giving way to resignation as they realized their cause was lost. Outside, the storm began to subside, the rain tapering off into a gentle drizzle. Sarah and her team emerged from the warehouse, escorting the cultists into waiting police vehicles. "It's over," Maya said softly, relief evident in her voice. "We did it." Mark nodded, his expression somber. Hartley's dark legacy won't haunt anyone else. Eric packed up his equipment, a sense of closure settling over him. "We put an end to the possessed portraits." Sarah looked back at the warehouse one last time, the portrait of Evelyn Hartley standing as a testament to their victory over darkness. "We couldn't have done it without each other," she said, gratitude and pride filling her voice. As they drove away from the warehouse, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The possessed portrait case had been their most challenging yet, but they had faced it together and emerged stronger for it. Back at SBIU headquarters, they filed their reports and debriefed with their superiors. The city of Millbrook would sleep easier knowing the threat of Hartley's cult had been neutralized. But for Sarah and her team, the journey was far from over. The world was full of mysteries and dangers, each requiring their unique blend of expertise and courage. As they prepared for their next assignment, they knew they would face it with the same determination and unity that had brought them through the ordeal of the possessed portrait.